Brodes Media.
What is going on, everyone? Welcome on into another episode of Schmoozed. Today we are joined by Rob Maaddi of the AP NFL writer. What's up, Rob? How's Florida treating you?
What's up, Brodes? I haven't worn sleeves in about 9 months since I got here, so Florida's treating me very well, man. I love it.
As I'm in a long sleeve drinking my hot coffee here in the morning. Yeah, you can see the difference for sure. But that's great. I'm jealous. I'm sitting here and I'm chilly walking the dog. See, I hate that every morning before, because my fiance wakes up earlier than me because she's got to be up earlier for work. So she does the morning dog duty. But then when I get up, it's my turn. So I always have to look over and say, what's it like out there? And she goes, well, 3 hours ago it was chilly. Now I'm walking outside. It's hot. You just never know.
Oh man, well, hang in there. You're getting to the good part of the year up north, and that's the best part. I love May through July over there. So I may like summer in Jersey and winter, be a snowbird, right? And just come down here for the rest of the year.
I love that. All right, let's get into some Philadelphia Eagles. It's somewhat weirdly been overstepped by this whole Embiid thing and the Sixers. So here in town, it's not being as discussed as maybe you would think it is. So how about before we dive into actual players and what they bring to the table, your overall thoughts on the philosophy by Howie Roseman and the Eagles now that you saw the whole draft play out?
I thought it was a great philosophy going in, Brodes. Starting off with, let's go back to when they owned 3 number 1 picks. I never expected them to use all 3. I thought what they did was what they were going to do. Sometime back in like December, I had spoken to some people around the league, and they're like, look for the Eagles to trade at least one of those ones, maybe 2 of those ones. Well, they trade 2, but get 1 back for this year and 1 for next year. So I like that philosophy where you're not putting all your first round picks this year. Now you got some flexibility in 2023, just in case Jalen Hurts doesn't, or for whatever reason that you want to have. It's always great to have draft capital. So I like that. Then going into the draft itself, right? You got the 2 first round picks. If I want to get a little nitpicky, moving up from 15 to 13 for Jordan Davis, I thought those 2 spots, they did give up a lot to go up 2 spots. Now, of course, they were concerned that Davis wasn't going to be there at 15, that somebody was going to snag him at 13 or 14. And they had to make that move. That's great. Now, I hope he can be the guy that they expect him to be, because you did give up a little bit for him. Now, trading 18 for A.J. Brown, I think is a home run. I think in Philly, everybody's going to be on board with that, because you could have gone wide receiver. They could have drafted Treylon Burks, right? He's a big-sized wide receiver, a guy that's what Tennessee expects to use to replace A.J. Brown, and they're just getting him cheaper. They don't have to pay. But, hey, you're getting an established, proven receiver who's only 24, 25 years old and has only played 3 seasons in the league. So you don't have to, as Nick Sirianni said, you don't have to project. You know what he's going to be, and there's still room for him to grow, I think, and develop. So when you look at that first-round philosophy, what they were able to do, I think you got to grade them out. And I hate grading after like 3 days, one week, whatever it may be. But knowing that A.J. Brown's a proven commodity, you can now actually you can say, hey, that's an A draft right there. And then you look at Cam Jurgens in the second round, and eventually you're going to have to replace Jason Kelsey. And the fact that he gives you a little bit of flexibility, he can play guard. I'm sure he's going to be in the mix, and he's a second-round pick. He's probably not going to sit on the bench all year. You may find opportunity for him to play. I thought that was a pretty good move. And then we know Nakobe Dean fall into the first round value in the 3rd round. Now, I know there's some concerns about the pec injury. Brodes, I heard something completely different than the reason he slipped, had nothing to do with injury, and something completely different. I'm not reporting that at this point right now, but I think that there may have been other circumstances involved. Nonetheless, I think he's great value in the 3rd round. And I think he's a guy who's going to contribute on the field right away. So you get that coming out of a draft, 3-4 guys who are going to contribute immediately. You did pretty well.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you. I got no problem with. I know the second round, the center. Everyone's thinking maybe something a little bit more sexy, but there's a reason why the Eagles consistently can put together an offensive line that gives you a real advantage. Really, it's not even hold their own and keep you involved. You have an advantage when you think about what Jeff Stoutland does with a lot of these players. And there was a concern at one point. You had Jason Peters, who was getting older, Jason Kelsey, who every year we think is going to retire, but ends up playing another one, and Lane Johnson. And now you look at it, and look, we don't know what Cam Jurgens is going to be, but if we project him out to be something solid with the work of Jeff Stoutland, you have Jordan Mailata, Landon Dickerson, you got Jack Driscoll at right guard if he could stay healthy and take that job. I don't know where Isaac Seumalo is right now in the mix, but my point is, you go from a dominant, experienced offensive line to now replenishing everything, and you can have a dominant, super young offensive line that we grow with for years to come. And it's not the sexiest thing in the world, but this organization values that, and their track record should excite the people that are a little uncomfortable with the center. And you know what? And maybe this is more about where Jason Kelsey is. The fact that he's now handpicking it and being pretty vocal about it, you'd have to imagine this might probably be the last year here, even though it seems he always comes back.
Yeah, I kind of got that sense at the Super Bowl. Saw him there, talked to him there, and he was really struggling with the decision to come back this year. So if it was tough for him to make that decision to come back and play 1 year, and it's not about anything physical. It's more about being home and being with his young daughter and just spending time there. And I know he's taken a lot of wear and tear. But hey, Howie said it afterwards. He said, "Hey, we build this team with in the trenches, offensive and defensive line. So when they were in the second round thinking about Nakobe Dean or Cam Jurgens or someone else, they wanted to go with the offensive line. They were fortunate enough that Nakobe Dean fell to them in the third round. But the MVP in this whole conversation is going to be Jeff Stoutland. I think what he's been able to do with Jordan Mailata, what he's been able to do with with Landon Dickerson last year and other young offensive linemen. I think this guy is the assistant coach of the year every year. And to bring in Cam Jurgens, and now if you want him to get a little more experience at either of those guard spots, they're okay with Dickerson. And like you said, Driscoll, if he's healthy, Isaac Seumalo is in the mix at this point for sure, because he's played a lot of games for this team. But it never hurts to have an overflow of offensive linemen, depth on that line, because guys go down. We've seen it. We've seen the years where Kelsey was the only guy, last man standing, the only one. So and you know what, bros? If you're going to go get an offensive lineman, a Cornhusker, a guy from Nebraska fits the mold for me, right? That's a guy I want to go out there and get paving the way. Somebody like that from the middle of the country, like Cam.
Yeah, definitely. And I was a little surprised about the Nate Herbig news. Not that he's anything crazy or anything, wildly special, but they went with the tenure, and then it ends up, I don't know. I heard that his agent, obviously, and them communicated, and he wants a bigger role. But were you stunned to see that news?
A little bit surprised, but then when you take a deep dive into it, it makes sense. He sees the writing on the wall. He sees that he's going to be buried on a depth chart barring injury, and wants an opportunity to go somewhere and start. So I thought maybe if they could have expressed that to the Eagles during the draft, to where maybe you get a 7th round pick for him or something at all without having to release him, it would have worked out a little nicer. But hey, that's what happened, and wish Herbie the best wherever he goes.
Yeah, definitely. I want to flip back to the first round, though, and who they selected in Jordan Davis. I heard the debate on maybe they should have stayed and just got Hamilton if that was the case, if the Ravens did end up taking a Jordan Davis. I like the pick. I know he's a bigger guy, and there's some conversations about third down, percentage of snaps that happened in Georgia, but you look at the fact that you're getting their linebacker at Georgia and Dean, and then now you're getting their defensive tackle and what he's going to be capable of doing, drawing double teams, and just even if he doesn't get a lot of sacks, just how much pressure he puts on the offensive line to open up the space for everyone else, knowing that Fletcher Cox is kind of getting on the older side. And it seems like there's a common theme here, right? You're kind of replenishing some of these guys that we've been growing with as fans here in Philly for a while and getting some younger versions of themselves to a degree. But are you afraid of the third down stuff and everything that happened in Georgia and his size? And then would you have went Hamilton if that was the road that it was, obviously there?
I can't dismiss the fact that, hey, he's a big guy. He's 340 pounds, 341 pounds, whatever it may be, going in. His conditioning is going to be a problem right? He's a guy who's going to have to stay on top of his conditioning in order to be able to play more snaps. So I think that's a very real concern. But it is it's I'm here in the Tampa area, right? And Vita Vea, who's one of the best interior linemen, did not play. The defensive coordinator for the Bucs the other day said, I thought he averaged somewhere between 40 and 45 snaps. He actually never played 40 snaps, but like 1 or 2 times in the season. He's a guy who wasn't on the field often. He's a big guy. It's just going to happen with those big run-stuffing nose tackles, defensive tackles in the interior of the line. But that's what's going to happen with a guy like Drew. You got to stay on top of him, make sure he stays conditioned. Yes, he's a run stuffer, but because he's so big and so talented, it doesn't mean, even if it doesn't translate into sacks, is he opening up the way? Is he taking up 2 or 3 blockers? Is he allowing the guys, Hassan Reddick and others off the edge, to come in and get to the quarterback and pressure the quarterback? So we know you can't always determine a guy's value by his stats, by his numbers. So yeah, I would have loved Davis at 15. The fact that they had to move up 2 spots and trade a little bit for him makes me hesitant to say I absolutely love it. I understand why they value the trenches, and with Fletcher Cox being someone who is on the decline for sure, that they have to replenish in the interior of that line. I think I still would have liked Davis over Hamilton, 13, 14, 15, wherever they go, because that's a guy, you could find secondary help, safety help. You can find that, I think, a little bit easier than an interior lineman who could dominate.
I'm curious what you're expecting out of the defensive coordinator this year. Last year, it was a bit of a mess. I also don't think his personnel fit what he wanted to do. Now you're kind of looking at a whole different angle here. You mentioned Reddick. They pick up White from the Chargers. Now they have Dean in there for a linebacking core. You still have TJ Edwards in the mix. Now, I'm a little fearful of that secondary. I'm not as high as Howie Roseman seems to be on an Anthony Harris, on a Marcus Epps, on what they're doing in the secondary right now, and opposite of Darius Slay is somewhat of a curveball right now at the moment. But when you look at, I guess, more up front first with Jonathan Gannon, what are your expectations?
Yeah, I think Gannon last year was still feeling his way through his first season. The talent, the personnel that he had, what he wanted to do, and the guys that can get that job done, I don't think it meshed well. And right now, with Kaiser White, with Nakobe Dean coming in and Reddick off the edge, I think he's got more playmakers, more flexibility.
A healthy Brandon Graham, too, actually, which,
Brodes, that'll help big time, because it's hard to say a guy at Brandon Graham's age is going to get better, but he did have a year off, right? He had to go through an injury, but there was no wear and tear on him last year. He's a little bit fresher. So I think he could be impactful this year. The secondary is going to be a concern for sure. I think you look at the secondary right now, and you don't have a proven corner opposite Darius Slay that is going to be able to go out there. I don't think they're not done, because you could find someone in June, you could find someone in July, you can make a deal in August if someone becomes available through. There's some depth, growing depth. The team brought in some younger guys who they think, all right, this guy could step into a role now, and one of our veterans, maybe we can move. At this point, we've seen the Eagles make these moves. We know that Ronald Darby was acquired in August of that Super Bowl year. But I do think that that's an area that's going to be concerning. But what I'd like to see out of Jonathan Gannon this year is beat a good quarterback, because they didn't beat any team last year with a really solid, not even elite, but a very good quarterback. So that's going to be the biggest question. Can they do that? Now, obviously, Matt Ryan, week 1, that was a good quarterback, a very good quarterback. Other than that, throughout the season, they had struggles in those areas, and we saw that.
There's a little bit of a different question, and I feel this doesn't get talked about a lot. I get labeled a Howie Roseman lover. I'm not a Howie Roseman lover. I just clearly don't despise him and think he's an idiot like majority of people do. Whenever they lose on Sunday, it automatically goes back to fire Howie Roseman. But when I look at this Eagles organization and I compare it to it's not exactly the same, but it is viewed around NFL circles as one that is always in the mix, always competing. You look at the Green Bay Packers, you look at the Pittsburgh Steelers, you look at the Ravens. The Eagles are in the mix of an organization that people look at as one that's successful. There's a lot of people getting plucked from their front office. I find that fascinating and somewhat of a storyline that doesn't really get mentioned a lot because you don't really know what they do. They're to an executive and this and that. But is that as damaging as maybe I look at it as someone who values how strong they are as, hey, they're getting plucked a lot? Or is it something where if they're getting plucked a lot and they're a good organization, they normally do replenish that very well? Like, what's your view on that?
Well, let's go. Let's start with Howie Roseman. The public perception of him in Philly and the one nationally are complete opposites. I think nationally, people look at Howie Roseman as a top tier GM, as a guy who is always going to have a competitive team out there, who's a mastermind of the salary cap. They won a Super Bowl in 2017. They've been to the playoffs every year since but one, that colossal disaster of a 2020 season. And I think people look at him as a very good GM, maybe top 5, if not definitely top 10. That's the national perception of him. I understand why Philly gets ticked at him. I understand why Philly sometimes gets really annoyed with him. And they always want to blame the GM, the head coach, the quarterback anytime the team loses. I question sometimes how Howie is can really spin stories and how he gets his information.
I don't believe you. I don't believe you.
Right? But he's great at that. This organization is very good at what they do. Hey, they want you to buy in. They want the fan base and the public to buy a storyline. They'll be the first one out there, out front, whether it's true or not. They'll be the one letting certain people in the media know about it. So I think he does a very good job at that. And the fact that they're getting people plucked, Brodes, right? GM factory, isn't that what they are? But you look at Andrew Barry goes to Cleveland. Joe Douglas may have had the best draft of anyone now.
Both New York teams, unfortunately.
Yeah. So he's and now Catherine Raichi is about to get a new job in a similar role with the Cleveland Browns. They lose a couple others to the Giants and Ian Cunningham to the Bears. And this is a team where people outside around the league look at how the Eagles model is set up, and they want to pluck those people who were close to them. It's like in baseball where we would say, why didn't the Phillies, why didn't they go after people from anybody in the Rays front office? Guys who actually know how to build a team with no payroll whatsoever. The Eagles are kind of that NFL equivalent because they're consistently getting rated in that front office. And that just speaks to what they've been able to accomplish. And I think, I understand the Philly fan mentality. I get it. I understand it, but we do go overboard in Philly. You know that.
Well, that's why I like to stress it, because it's not, I mean, I guess it's viewed as an outlier, but it just doesn't get the recognition that it deserves. That there's a reason why all these teams out there who are poorly ran and who aren't as strong as the Eagles are go, we need to get back on track. Let's look at the teams that somewhat have structure and know what they're doing each year, and let's pluck from them. And it's the Eagles, but you just lose sight of that because all you care about is, well, did they win or lose? And I'm not telling you have to devalue if they win or lose. That's the name of the game, but let's not lose sight of the overall, which is sustainable success from this franchise is reality more than it is the outlier seasons. And I think what you're seeing after last year with Devontae Smith and Landon Dickerson, and you're seeing less of the J.J. Arcega-Whitesides of the world, and you're starting to see a little bit more of a trend of going to these big SEC schools. Not that automatically generates to success, but, there's a better approach involved, and I think we can see their vision. All I ask for, because I don't look at this team as now a Super Bowl championship team, although I didn't look at the 2017 team as a Super Bowl championship team. But I asked for, all right, Howie, what's your blueprint? And I'm starting to see the blueprint. And if I could get behind the logic, knowing it takes time to execute, I could live all right. I could drink my coffee here, have a talk with Rob Maaddi in the morning, and understand that we got a good vision,
Bros, they're the gold standard minus the Super Bowls, man. And when Jeffrey Lurie said gold standard, I think part of it was a model for an organization that other teams want to emulate. And that's what they have. It hasn't resulted in more than one parade, but you did get that parade. Now, yes, I would look at the New England Patriots as the real gold standard for you win 6 Super Bowls. That to me is the gold standard. But what Jeffrey Lurie wanted to do was create a franchise model where other teams around the league look at it and say, hey, they're doing things the right way. They're able to build sustainable success. They're competitive year in and year out. There's a wild fan base that sells out every game and everything like that. From a business standpoint, is a model that people want to follow from the Eagles. But the front office structure is one that's done very well. And yeah, I'll knock Howie when he deserves it. I know we all look at Jalen Reagor over Justin Jefferson and J.J. Arcega-Whiteside over DK Metcalf, and you can never change those. That will always be there. But teams have draft misses. Every team misses in the draft. Belichick misses in the draft. The Bucs miss in the draft. Pete Carroll's missed in the draft more than he's hit for several years. So it happens. I just think that the Eagle fan base is so passionate about their team that they're able to nitpick those things and stick to them. But I'm not going to entirely give him a pass either. Howie doesn't deserve a pass. He certainly needs to be called on it when things happen that certainly need to be called out for. But I don't think they're a Super Bowl team. In 17, I thought they were a 9-7 team, and they went on and won the Super Bowl. Doesn't mean that this was going to follow that path, but I think they're a better team now than they were when they got trounced at Raymond James Stadium, and that's a good thing.
Absolutely. We will end on a Jalen Hurts question, but my last point on what we were just dissecting is I feel we forget how difficult it is truly to win. Aaron Rodgers is one of the best quarterbacks to ever do it. He's got one. Drew Brees is the best, not the best quarterback, but one of the best quarterbacks we've seen over the last couple of eras of football, and he has one. So the fact that sometimes I hear, and this is why I sound like a Howie Roseman supporter, by the way, and as if I have a shrine of Howie Roseman in my office, but he's got one. He's got the same amount as, you can look at Aaron Rodgers and saying one is a disappointment when you actually look at his skill level. So winning one, he only has one. Well, come on. What do you mean he only has one? We're talking about the best quarterbacks right now in the game only have one. So it's a very difficult task. That's my my spiel, if you will. But anyway, Jalen Hurts. I had a good feeling to build off of last year from an overhead view of what he did. It was okay. Had its highs, had its lows. As the offseason went forward and we saw some of the postseason games, Mahomes and Allen, they're rare. They don't fall off of trees and you can't find them all the time. I go back to looking at Jalen Hurts and go, damn, well, I don't know how I feel anymore. And that's kind of how I'm entering into next season. I have no idea how I feel about Jalen Hurts. And I think that almost tells me what I need to know, which is, Brodes, it might not be longer than just one more season with him.
If I had to put a bet on it right now, Brodes, I think it may only be one more season with him. But having said that, I think there's enough talent there, enough promise that maybe there's a big giant leap from year 2 to year 3. Right? Last year was his first full season as a starter. He only started 4 games the previous year, and he was still able to lead the team to the playoffs. He did some very nice things. And at the end, we know when you look at the overall quarterbacks in the playoffs, Jalen Hurts wasn't going to be able to compete with the Bradys, the Mahomes, the Josh Allen, and like all of these guys in the playoffs. They have that extra intangible to where they can lead their team to victory, where they can get everybody and have that victory because of what they do. Jalen, for the most part, is a guy that the Eagles were able to win with. I need him to step it up to the point where they win because of what Jalen can do. And yeah, he is multi-talented. He can go out there and run for 150 yards. He can maybe throw for 350 if need be, if they air it out consistently in a game and they don't run the football. But they're built to run the football. So I think there is hope that he takes that next step. But I don't know, because the Eagles are impatient when it comes to quarterbacks, and understandably so. They place a high premium on having that guy, that quarterback who can lead you to the promised land. I don't know that he can show enough improvement this year to where, with 2 1s next year, with maybe a better draft class coming out, maybe more veteran quarterbacks. You never know. We saw veterans, Matt Ryan, Carson Wentz, Deshaun Watson. These guys are moving around. Russell Wilson being the head of that class. Who knows who's going to be available next year? Maybe Lamar Jackson's available next year. Now, there's knocks against Lamar that he doesn't win in the playoffs either, but maybe there's an opportunity for them to where they think they can better the position. And I think that's where it's going to end up. But I want to see how this season plays out, because I think Jalen has that hope and that potential to where he may be able to prove enough to the Eagles. And I think they're as hard as a sell as the fan base is. I think they really expect to have that guy that they can build their team on, and he's not there yet. It doesn't mean he definitely can't get there. But if I had a bet on it right now, I would think that they would go in a different direction. But let's see what he can do. He's got more weapons now. He's got A.J. Brown. He's got Devontae Smith in year 2. The running back situation, they're going to go into the season knowing they're a great running team and not wait 6 weeks before they start running the ball. That should help them off the start. So I'm excited to see how he can develop in year 3.
That's an excellent point. I mentioned the same thing about Nick Sirianni, too. They were all first-year coaching staff, and they were kind of figuring out on the fly on the sidelines where, you had to wait a little bit until you found out your identity. Now you're rolling into the season understanding more of what your identity could be, even though it does change year to year. You have a better mindset on it, and who knows, maybe that changes the early stages of the year, which rolls into some confidence. But, Rob, thank you so much for joining me this morning. Got some Eagles talk. I so much Joel Embiid and sadness, and the Phillies and sadness, where I needed to boost the energy up this morning,
I love it. The Eagles will hype you up right now, and maybe Joe can come back for game 3. Is there still hope? Can he come back for game 3?
Yes, he'll have to wear another Phantom of the Opera mask.
All right, let's do it.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Rob.
You got it, brother.